Our favourite people we're about to embrace. We hold them at bay. We see their messages that roll through because they go early. They go in the single-digit rounds. But our ladder predictor people, our favourite Monday people, are in and welcome. We've set you up for the competition again. Last year we had about 1,500. We got none right from this point. No one got it right.
What the hell are we doing it for then?
We want to see if someone can nail it. Right. Entries are open. The prize is
a week with Gerard Whateley.
2 reserved tickets for week 1 of the finals. You choose the game, we'll give you 2 reserved tickets in week 1. Head to iCanWin.com.au to enter. The tile is there. It couldn't be more simple. Fill in your details, and there's a slot for 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Run it through. And you've gone to work in our King's Gambit and joined the ladder predictors.
Well, no one got it right last year. And they said, can you do it? I thought, what is the point? It's about a trophy too, Jude, which will be an awful trophy. Yep. It's prestige.
So if you happen to work with ladders or
yes,
we're in the business of a shonky ladder trophy.
Something looks ridiculous and it'll look out of place on
and maybe perpetual. We'll hand it to you for a year, and then you could give it back.
Have you ever tried to get anything back from our audience?
How did the ladder predictor shake out for you?
Well, I ended up with Collingwood, Port Adelaide, Melbourne in 3rd, Brisbane in 4th.
So despite the fact there's an 8-point gap between them, they flip places on yours.
Let's not be overly critical, Gerard. 5th, I had the Western Bulldogs.
Climbing.
Then Geelong.
They get to 6th.
Adelaide making it.
Yeah, from 9th now.
They come in round 24, Gerard.
Oh, that's an exciting finish.
And I've got Essendon in 8th. Now, I don't know how I did that, but I have.
Okay.
And I have Richmond dropping out in the last round of the year.
So Richmond claim a place.
They're in round 23, but they're out in round 24.
But can't hold on to it. Okay.
So see how that goes. Can you write all that down?
Yep,
see if
I've written it down. So St Kilda out, Adelaide in. Richmond has a look at it, but can't hold on. Brisbane and Melbourne flip places. Essendon slide from 5th to 8th. And up go the Dogs and the Cats.
Because it's more who you play and where you play them now.
Yeah.
Not really how good you. I mean, clearly you want to be playing great footy, but the fixture does a few in late in the piece.
So iCanWin.com.au, the big tile for the Means Test 2023 ladder predictor. We've got a couple of weeks to enter. We're going to keep it open just a little longer than we did last year to give you a better chance at it.
Now, my man you were just talking about the Allies winning?
Yes.
My man reckons they'll have 5 of the top 10 in the national draft out of that team.
Okay.
So it's incredibly strong.
So that's the next step, isn't it?
You'd say that 3 of those would be the Gold Coast Suns draftees, or academy players, I should say, that they'll just get a free hit at, particularly if they miss the 8, which they probably will. So that's great for them. But there's a lot of quality there. Spike McVeigh's done a good job.
Nice. Literally did my ladder predictor this morning. Here you go. Oh. And this fellow's got 5th Dogs, Saints, Adelaide, Bombers.
Saints.
So Cats come out and Crows go back in there. Dreaming of a shonky ladder predictor trophy. Yes, so are we. Shonkiest ladder predictor trophy we can find.
If you're looking to sponsor a shonky trophy, that's all we need.
This is the moment. Send us photos, Whateley at sen.com.au. Email them through. The big issue. So I was captivated by the double feature yesterday. Unlike at the Dramana driving where you could watch one after the other. You had to keep running around the field and flicking between screens. But I saw the best of Essendon in the first half, and I saw the Carlton that I love in the first and the third quarter. So I just wanted to delve a little into what this is now and what it could grow into over time.
So where do you want to start?
Essendon. Let's do it in order. Let's go Essendon first.
Well, it's a fantastic start. The ball use in the first quarter, particularly going inside 50, was what I liked the most of the performance. And you can attack any mode you like, but I like when you see cohesion, and you see a team that's it's not the me, it's the we, and leading to the right spots, opening up space for others. Quality ball use, everyone doing the right thing at the right time, and the leadership of that football club has changed enormously on the back of Zach Merritt's impact on this group. I think it's Zach's team now. There's been a handover of sorts over the previous few months, and they didn't like what they were hearing from Zach over the last few years, and maybe he didn't have the stamps, he didn't have the stripes on the shoulders to endorse what he was saying. And I think there's been a shift from him, that he's not just going to say it, he's going to do it and he's going to lead. So I think that's a credit to him and a credit to that organisation for making the right choice at the right time for this group. But I just want to put a caveat on it, Jerry. It was a very open game of football.
It was a very Marvel game of football. Those
yeah.
are that can only get that game at that stadium, I reckon, with the roof and the
And
dimensions.
those teams.
Yeah.
So so Essendon are happy to play that game, right? And in the back of my mind, and I know people, I'm not potting Essendon at all. I'm just saying in the back of my mind, it doesn't strike me as a finals type setup. Now, it was brilliant yesterday and it looked awesome. And if they play a final at Marvel and can play that way, look out. And so there's a lot to like, but it just struck me as a game that was a game of basketball. Your turn, my turn. Your turn, my turn. But that's okay. I'm happy with all those people coming at me. I thought Darcy Parish was really good. I thought Peter Wright, gee whiz, what a player. It's probably one of the biggest errors you've seen in the club, allowing Peter Wright to leave. He straightened that whole football club up, didn't he? And he has the last few weeks, and he just kicks so well. So it was a disappointing afternoon for the Adelaide Crows. They really didn't turn up to play at the start. So, yeah, good win, very good win, playing some good footy, and a football club that's going through a complete transition. And this is maybe just the start of it. Another pre-season, they'll be defensively better. Their spacing in their zones will be a lot better. They'll try different things. They'll get more. They're a destination club now, so they're going to get some more talent. If they hang on to Redmond, hang on to Parish, who knows what next year brings? But It's been a great platform.
Yep. Layer. I can see the layers.
Yep.
Carlton. So this is more what we expected.
Yeah, and it's a little bit off the back of the Essendon discussion as well. If your leaders play the roles they're supposed to play, then it's not that hard to have quality performances. This is the team that they should have been. They lost their way for a little while. I thought, we've talked about them for months. They had that 5 in a row patch where they just couldn't find a win, and it got consumed with winning.
Yes.
Instead of how it should look. Their midfield weren't brave enough, and bravery is not running back with the flight or necessarily putting your head over the contested possession. It's stepping through a hole. It's engaging and handling the opposition pressure, and having the courage to break a tackle and come out the front of a stoppage, or engage in the fight, in the absolute contest. And I think that since Cripps has done that, and, it's a shame to see Kennedy go down, but Walsh has become a runner again. Like, he's there at every handball receive opportunity is there. Wiedering's become the intercept centre-half back that every team needs. They've been waiting for Mitch McGovern to come this player. It's not for Mitch McGovern. Mitch McGovern's a nice player. He's an edges player for me, right? He's not a build-around guy. That's why you get these guys, because they're not build-arounds. Pick one, leader of your footy club, centre-half back. So I did some numbers on him. He's gone from 40th in the competition, rounds 1 to 10, to top 2 in the competition for intercept marks over the last 7 weeks. Now, there's no secret to that. He would have been challenged internally. Hey, come on. You got to give us more. And maybe his head was a bit scrambled with all that stuff going on at the start of the year, which we don't have to get involved with. So you got Cripps becoming violent at clearance again. You got Wiedering being the one-man wall across half-back, and Adam Saad then gets to play his role, because you've got the big bopper doing that. Saad has a stack of intercepts because he's working off the back of that reference point. And then we know about the two tall forwards. They kicked 3 goals each, but they could have kicked a bag. They really could have kicked a bag. So it all works when everyone plays their role and the leaders actually take responsibility for their zone. So this is the Carlton we expected. Where it takes them this year, I don't know. Do they get an opportunity to make a run? To me, it doesn't matter. And people say, that's ridiculous. They should have played fine. You finish 7th or 8th, you play one final. Does it really make a difference to what 2024 and 2025 looks like? Probably not. Same goes for Essendon and St Kilda. It doesn't really matter to me. You're on the premiership journey. You're not on the finals journey. Finals are not the success that everyone thinks they are. It's about getting to an opportunity to win a flag. And I think that Michael Voss has done a great job to correct this group in season, which is one of the biggest challenges you can have.
Yeah, you can't waste a season. Now that I'm interested, so let's not hear anyone at Carlton talk about finals. You can't live as a team that gets crippled by the fear and the consequence of it. And they lived a 6-week block where they were obsessed with the quest for finals.
With winning.
So now they play with freedom when the pressure is off and actually become the team they want to. Now, how do they handle this on the way in? And these 7 games will tell us, well, it will tell them everything they need to know going into next year. But this is not just a team, this is a club issue. As soon as you obsess with making finals the way that they did, it sat so heavily on them. So they've got a nice phase to actually figure out, okay, how do we now play with a bit of pressure that we've brought back to ourselves by actually winning?
But sometimes you have to experience it to know what it is.
You learn when you learn.
You learn when you learn. So I think it's taken a while to get to this point. Last year they were on autopilot. Everything they did worked, and their clearance stuff was unbelievable, and they come out the front, and the opposition teams go, okay, we've seen this for 6 weeks now. We've got to stop this. So they started to disarm Carlton a little bit, and they run aground in some small margin games at the end of the season. They could have easily played finals last year. Would it have made any difference this year? Probably not. So they have a shocking patch of 5 or 6 weeks, and they look lost as a footy club, and the pressure comes on everyone. And as I said last night, they did more press conferences than Dan Andrews during COVID, their leadership group during that month of footy. And then now they've come out the other side saying, okay, that's what it looks like. That's my function in this team. Now carry that forward. That's the challenge, to not have to wait till the disappointment, mid-season next year, to actually hit the ground running, knowing what you need to do.
Yep. So our big issue comes from the double feature yesterday, Essendon and Carlton. We've got the best bits. We're going to debate Collingwood and what comes next, the curiosity that's North Melbourne, and there's a really obvious pressure index. That's Fremantle and Justin Longmuir and how they've handled this year, where they find themselves now as surely the biggest disappointment, although Sydney are running some pretty good competition on that front. A milestone beautifully marked as Zach Tui eclipsed the game's record of Jim Steins as an Irishman playing Australian rules football. It was beautifully done, and having Jim's jumper presented to him at the end. So I've sort of got in the best bits an Irishman and 2 sons of guns walk into a bar. Because Tui's was lovely, but it was hard to miss Cooper Harvey and Tajwa Woden from the weekend as well.
Yeah, it was. They tried everything to get Zach a goal, didn't they?
Yes.
A couple of those handballs, one from Graham Myers.
I think Gary Rowan realised that ball at the end was actually intended for Zach Tui.
Yeah.
See ball, fly it ball.
Which is great theatre and great entertainment. He's been a super player, and I don't know if Carlton knew what they were losing when they lost him. But he's stronger than you think. He's a better kick than you think. He's more reliable than you think. He's everything that you want any draftee to be, really. So for him to come across and do that, full credit to him and both organisations that put him on the path, really. But the young kids really blew me away. Woden was terrific, and he's a player of the future. And Cooper Harvey, well, I know there's a whole heap of kids coming through, but for him to take control of his own game, 5 contested marks, kicked a big goal. It was great to see.
Our last conversation, Kingy, was we did a crunch time and then a Wednesday night where you were talking about when Nick Dacos becomes a pure mid and a mid forward, no more half back. And haven't we seen that?
He's gone crazy, hasn't he?
Oh.
Gone crazy. And this is, I think, what we're talking about. We talk every week, right? And people, so when we do this program, it's almost like we just chat footy and people listen to it. And you can disagree and you can agree and all those sorts of things. No, I don't really care. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care. But we're looking for areas that are untapped, areas of advantage. So we've talked about Petrarca going forward. We've talked about Nick Dacos going centre forward. What can that become? Now, then we'll talk about the Collingwood tools in a moment. There's so many areas, whether you're top of the table or bottom of the table, that are scope for improvement. Now, Nick Dacos now challenges every midfield magnet at Collingwood. So it's DeGoey and Dacos as absolute booms in there, and whoever the third person is at centre bounce, it doesn't really matter. People went crazy last week when I said Mitchell may have to make way for Nick Dacos as a clearance player. I'm not saying delist him.
No.
What I'm saying is he's not going to get the prime minutes or shouldn't get the prime minutes because of the damage these others now have. I look at Josh Dacos and I say, what's worse than one Dacos in there? Maybe two. They're dancers. They do things differently. So they're top of the table and they've got more scope for improvement than any other team.
I think we'll fully appreciate it in hindsight, and we'll do it almost the round by round of the Brownlow. I suspect Nick Dacos has a healthy Brownlow medal lead when he leaves half back. And then he just accelerates and leaves them behind once he goes centre forward.
Wow. We did tell you round one, Jared, to get some money on him at 50-1.
I just think the evolution of his season is riveting. And
so is that the model?
No, he's the exception.
Yeah.
So I think he's the exception to everything.
He's the exception to everything.
I don't think we've ever seen. This is not how Judd started his career. I know he's the reference point because he was explosive. This is not how he started.
Judd was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, so now it's changed a bit now, hasn't it? Look, Sheasel starting at halfback, and then so he's only had half a year at halfback, and then going into the middle. So should it be a year? Should you build these young bodies first before throwing them in and having them impacted, mentally with the scarring of being bashed by bigger bodies in that first 12 months? George Wardlaw's going in there. He's getting bashed. Like, is that a good thing? Ashcroft's doing a great job, but there's some games I look at him and I think, gee whiz, you're a small man in a big boys world in there. I don't have the answer. And in the end, the kids tell us whether they can handle it or not. But the way they've handled Dacos has been brilliant. You've never seen a player train like him, Jared. This is the thing with him, right? Everyone thinks, it's just game day. He would be hard to manage. He'd be forever. Hands on, Paul. He's Vo Rogue, Jared. You got to try and stop him all the time. He just wants to go. So I'm rapt. I'm rapt that he's having the year that he's having, and Craig McRae's used him so well. And to hear that he still walks in and says, "Am I playing midfield coach every week?" I find that hilarious. As if he's not going to play midfield, Jared.
All right, give me the next layer to our Collingwood debate.
I think they've got some big decisions to make. I think they've got 3 goals to find with their tall forward mix. The Frampton's not going to play forward in the final, right? So he's there at the moment, but he's not playing forward in the final. So they're trying to work out whether they can use him in all 3 modes: ruck, back, and forward if need be. So is he the perfect swing man to have in your 22? They kick the ball to Cox 4 times a week. He does 15 or 16 hit-outs a week. He's 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the ruck. Is that enough to justify a position in this forward half in the finals? And some may say yes. Johnson, I think, plays. I think he's a bit of a wild card tall. That's a beautiful kick. But you may have to make a decision out of him and Cox. McStay and Myercheck are coming in for me. So clearly Myercheck's in their best 22, and McStay needs an opportunity and a run at it. I think he comes in this week. I think you have a look. And if you've got more weaponry with those 2 guys who understand forward craft, it's more natural for those guys. And I'm not saying the others can't play by any stretch, but there's 3 goals on the deck just with your tall forward improvement there. Frampton, for me, needs to play down back. Darcy Moore is being exposed by the opposition best tall forward, and whilst it suits him to be in the action, and he's an elite defender, and we love what he does, but when he gets beaten, it impacts the scoreboard significantly. So I think they looked the best when they had Frampton down there to play on the. So picture the first final. Say it's Brisbane. Brisbane first final. Who's playing on Danaher? Who's playing on Hipwood? Who's playing on Big Oscar when he goes forward?
Yep.
So they're the sort of things you got to start to trek towards now. So Frampton down back, allow Murphy and Dacos to be the interceptors, and then you've got decisions to make about how many freewheelers you can have down back. Quaynor's been exceptional. They're doing so much right, but they've got so much scope for improvement and tinkering to come. So I'm fascinated by how their 23 will look in the first final. How do you think their forward mix will look? Do you think Cox will be there? That's a big question, isn't it?
Yep.
How heavily do you value the 15 minutes in the ruck? So I'd rather get 2 goals out of McStay. That's just my thought, and lose a few headouts because you got the weapons at ground level anyway.
Yep. No, McStay's return is really interesting. There are zero reasons to talk Collingwood at the moment.
Oh.
Give me a spell, Jared. Why would we not talk about the best team in the competition? Imagine if we did that. So every week from here on, we're not going to talk about the pace setter, the team who leads. You like calling a race and going, oh, there's this horse who's 8 lengths out in front. That's very rogue, but we won't mention him. We'll just talk about the chase.
What about how exciting? That was an exciting game.
You got to do better.
That was a great game. I really enjoyed the Friday night game. The Dogs were very good. And still, we're going to talk about Nick Dacos every week because at the moment there isn't an answer out there to show that he's gettable. Ryan Clark's done it a couple of times for Sydney with a little bit of Callum Mills thrown in, but that's the only time I've seen him really lower his colours. I'm fascinated to what, and I know we're getting away from the topics a bit. Round 19, Port Adelaide get another look at Dacos. They tried Lockie Jones on him last time when he was at half back.
Yep.
Now it's a different model. Let's see what Ken does. In a team that's flying, 1 versus 2. What are you going to do? And he may say, I'm not going to show him.
Yes.
Why would I show him now when I'm going to play him deeper into the
those
season?
are usually the games where you get a look at something for 15 minutes and then a coach goes, no more. We'll do that in September. I've seen it. We don't want to give them too much practice at something.
Yeah.
The debate for Syfe, buy the best stocks in one swipe or leave it to the pros with ready-made diversified orders. Download Syfe. You wanted to raise the curiosity of North Melbourne. So that the club, the club almost living in the void, the club on hold.
I just wonder whether they're better off saying, Alistair, take the year off. Have the rest of the season off. Stay, get yourself right. We'll see you, day one, look at the list from afar, watch us from afar. Be ready to make some trades, be ready to correct the list, all those sorts of things, and be ready to build a template of going forward. And let's just cease this business being on hold. To me, I think they've lost a bit of selection integrity. We're talking consistently about the back six leaders and where that sits. I'd be reprogramming McDonald, give him a tagging role or throw him forward for a little bit as a negating, sort of tackling, harassing small forward because he's a broken model down back. Jack Zeeble, love Jack, been an outstanding warrior, but if you can make the calls on Cunnington and Goldstein, you've probably got to make it on Jack. But who's making those calls? Is that Brett Ratton's decisions to make now? The game plan? I mean, it's a bit of a mess. It's been uncompetitive for so long now. So long. So is it because it's not really Rats's plan and it's not really driven home? The standards are not really there? The kids are trying hard. The kids have been very good. Senior core players probably letting things slide a little bit. So who's correcting all that? That's where I sit. And it all hits home to me when I see Tom Hawkins in the ruck and a Tristan Cherry who would know that Tom Hawkins has grabbed the ball out of the ruck at forward 50 stoppages for 10 years. And every team in the competition has stopped him from doing that by putting his nominal defender, stands right behind him, and the opposition ruckman just fights the fight. If he grabs it, then the fullback grabs him. Ben Mackay goes and stands 15 metres goal side as a sweeper type defender. Very rare you see a fullback sweeping type defender. Don't know what he's doing. And then the ruckman just gets pushed under the ball and he snaps a goal. And I think, well, how does that sneak up on you? So what's being missed? Is that just the player getting it wrong in one action? Why is Mackay 15 metres off him? So is it a during the week problem or is it a game day problem? Either way, I just think there's things falling through the cracks. So you got to find a way to get this club out of the holding pattern that it's in. And maybe it's just as simple as, hey, Rats, do the job for the rest of the year. Alistair, get yourself right. There's nothing to be gained anyway. What's to be gained? Do you have an opinion on that?
I think it's hard to live on hold. Yep. It's probably a conversation for a month ago for them. Like, so they're sort of stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea now. There's 7 to go. They would like a win or two at the back of the season, but this is all about are they getting the progress and the education that they were hoping for? But it does. I've forgotten what the phrase for the emergency teacher is these days.
The fill-in teacher.
Yeah, and it's
no one's listening. If they're listening, well, how come we don't see it? And it's a frustration for me, and it's a frustration for North fans that we're still in this position. But you've got to take control. Someone's got to take control of this footy club, and it's more of a plea than a discussion.
So this is the wasted year, isn't it?
Oh,
through circumstances not of their own making.
Yeah, and I understand that as well. I understand that. But we got 6, 7 more weeks.
7.
Why would you waste 7 games? Oh, I wouldn't waste a minute, not a minute, trying to make things better. So it was a discussion for a month ago. It was a discussion for 8, 10 weeks ago, really, when they knew this was a problem. So I would like them to get ahead of it, and then let's support Alistair. Absolutely, I'm not cutting him free. I'm not. We're saying we're making it easier for you. Get yourself right for October, and then we start back.
That's not a one-off for Justin Longmuir and his Dockers this season. They are the pressure index. They're in 14th place on the ladder. 28 points and a percentage of 91.7. The first and the third quarters yesterday were abysmal, and he diagnosed it, I reckon not for the first time, around getting stuck in their own heads and internalising, almost sort of not just from quarter to quarter, but game to game and indeed from season to season. So this is a heavy pressure index on what is a failed campaign.
Why is it a failed campaign? I agree with him, and he makes a lot of sense when he speaks in the post-match and all those sorts of things. But why? Why is it a failed campaign? They've had very few injuries this year. The guys that have played 16 games, Sarong, Clark, Ryan, Schultz, Cox, Young, Hughes, Pearce, Brayshaw, Jackson, they've played 16 games. They've had 10 players play 16 games. They've had 3 or 4 play 14 or 15, including Darcy. So all their key playmakers have been out there. Look, I don't understand how they're here. I really don't. And I see them, I've been critical about how they play, and then they come back and say, no, you're getting it wrong. You talk about other teams when the other teams fought handball like us. You don't talk about us like you talk about them. It's a mix and mash. It's all over the joint. How can the strategy have hit-outs, 70 hit-outs, plus 58 hit-outs, and then lose first possession, and then lose clearance, and then lose scores from clearance? Where's the strategy there? It was always going to be a clear advantage. We could have told you on Wednesday, hey, guys, you are going to win hit-outs. Now, everyone says, hit-outs are the most overrated thing. Not when you can get Sean Darcy hitting the ball wherever he likes. That's a different discussion totally to normal ruckman. Yeah, I'm not talking about Big Oscar going up against Max Gorn, and that's not really knowing where the ball's likely to fall. But we absolutely know where the ball's going to go. And the hit-outs to advantage, right? So let's do this properly. The hit-outs to advantage was something like 20 to Sean Darcy. So 20 times they've hit the ball to a Fremantle player, yet they don't get the clearance. So are they absolutely tough enough in the middle of the ground? And we talk about Brayshaw and Sarong and all these guys, they're great players and they're building. Are they absolutely tough enough? They got exposed. They got exposed yesterday, not for the first time this year. And it'll just fritter away. And in the West, they'll laud these guys. They're the future. They're the big bulls of the midfield. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Well, how about showing us? How about actually delivering upon consistently what you need to be? Carlton are getting smashed over here for not being the midfield that we thought they were going to be. And they had to live 6 weeks of pain. I just feel like Fremantle are the same, and they live a bit of a lie. There's always an excuse. There's always a reason. Can't play in the wet. We just don't win enough contests in the wet. Really? Can't play in the wet. And then not saying yesterday was wet at all. It wasn't. It was perfect. It was a great day for footy. They used to be a great defensive model, and that was their strength area. That was their identity. That was their point of difference. I've got no idea what their point of difference is right now. They go and recruit a point of difference, and when he's good, they're good, and when he's bad, they're bad.
Yeah, there is a bit of that.
What else is there? I think Amos has done really well. Had a very good year as a first, as a rookie type player, and right up there in the rising star. And he's a find. So he's been probably their biggest win for the year is finding him forward of centre. Really. Why don't they trust Young in the middle when things aren't working? Who goes through the middle when things aren't working? The hit out thing just blew me away. Why didn't we look at other options? Hit to space. Surge the ball forward. Remember, what did we talked about Big Phillips last week? Smashing the ball volleyball style to centre half forward just to shake things up against Port Adelaide because they didn't have a recognised ruckman there. And Finlayson kept roving Phillips's hit out. So he said, I'm not going to hit it to you. Bang. They did something different. So I'd be seriously disappointed if I was a Fremantle supporter. And, you know, they're better than this. That's the problem that I have. Okay, Sydney have had their injuries and they've had a poor year and they're where they are on the ladder. West Coast, they've had a poor year, but there are some alibis. I don't have to believe them all. But what are the alibis with Fremantle? What are they? Oh, it'll be an awful off-season. But they've got to be honest. Otherwise, they've got no hope of correcting anything if they're not honest.
So who's more disappointing, Fremantle or Sydney, who sit 14th and 15th?
Well, probably Sydney, because one of their wins was a game that really was given to them by the interchange stewards. Yeah, they're in a world of pain, and they're not tough enough. They've lived a bit of a lie as well. So, yeah, I don't really know who's more disappointing than the other. But what I do know is Fremantle probably should be minimum challenging for the finals, if not in the 8, having won a final last year. It's a big regression.
Mm. Yep, they're two hellish regressions. 7 and 9 Fremantle, 6, 9 and 1 Sydney, sitting 14th and 15th on the table. Let's just tick off. So the worst bit is the Toby Nankervis hit, and he'll go to the tribunal tomorrow night. And he's going to get 3 weeks. So there's the singular moment, but then there's what it does to Richmond, who are in that. So you've got them sitting in the 8 until round 24 and then dropping out. So he's the captain. He's such a big part of what they do. It's so the moment of violence is a poor error. What it does to the team is so much worse as the captain, I think.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the numbers, but in that third quarter, they took total control in the middle of the ground, and that was the difference. And it was in that second half, it was largely him. Like, he's such an influence on this team. Clearly, he's co-captain. Of course, he's going to be an influence. But as a big frame, as a big body, and a guy that just creates momentum, forward momentum. He's happy to create a path for those mids. And they're a very good team when he's in form. And this really rocks the boat. Soldo gets his opportunity, and he's that style of player as well. So maybe they don't lose as much as other teams in terms of like for like, but he's a tough one to replace, Nank. Got it wrong. It's the one thing you can't do in our game at the moment. And I really don't make any allowances for him. Cheap. He knew that ball was. He knew it was going to be late. He knew the ball was going to be gone, and he went through with it anyway. That is no longer part of our game. Cop your 3 weeks and move on.
Yep. So the impact that it has on Richmond, who sit in 12th place with ambitions, and they're in those teams who have the 2 either extra points or the 2 missing points in the fight for one of those to make the 8. It'll play a big role in it. And Billy's got the spirit of the ladder predictor. I tried out the ladder predictor too. I had Geelong, Carlton, Adelaide, Essendon and the Giants 7th to 11th, all on 12 wins. Being a bomber, I changed next Friday night's game, Essendon and the Bulldogs, from a 10-point Dogs win to a 10-point Essendon win. We moved from 10th to 5th. That's how close it is. Fair to say it's going to be an enthralling push to September with 8 teams vying for the final 4 positions. That's the spirit of the ladder predictor. If it shakes out, you don't quite like it, just go and find that one flex point.
That is exactly why no one gets it right. Because in the end, you work it back to the way you want it to look.
Yes. I've got just what they got right for Loop Logistics. Loop Logistics, the Swiss Army knife of construction management. Bringing Jack Gunston back in to feast on West Coast, that's getting it right. That's looking after your guy. I salute Chris Fagan on that one. Don't worry about what will make my guy feel the best. This is it. I don't know what it means for the weeks to come, but it gives him a look at it. I thought that was just, I had that as what they got. They got that right.
Yeah. Well done, well executed. You've taken him out for 2 tough weeks of training. I know he missed the block of 4 weeks, but 2 seriously tough weeks of training. get his body right, give him a chance to come back in and impact. He did look sharp. That's the one thing I'll say. He did look sharp. So from outside looking in, that's all we can judge. They'll have a better handle on where he is physically. He may have had some issues or been carrying game to game. But he's still going to be a threat. He's the one we thought would come back in. The one that I put on the radar was Daniel Rich.
Yep.
And I still don't see that changing. He had 19 disposals playing the VFL. It's not about disposals. It's just about the vulnerability with the lack of speed. And given the fact their backline's in good form, I don't know. I just don't know whether he's the one coming back in. But you're right. Big tick with the Hanley at Gunston.
It's what comes next now for Brisbane, isn't it? Friday night is just stacked.
And probably that's a template for going forward for those ageing stars, that you don't have to punish them into the reserves. Friday night's everything, though.
Melbourne at the MCG.
If they're going to be winning the flag this year, Gerard, they're winning this game. If they don't win this week against Melbourne, who many people have got the slows on, then you surely couldn't subscribe to them winning the flag.
Yep, they did it in in a semi-final.
Mm.
They've beaten them at the Gabba this year in the blackout game, where they really had them absolutely under their control until the lights went out. Now what happens at the MCG? It'll play a role in our seedings now and our seedings to come. I had questions out of Saturday night, St Kilda and Melbourne. The unanswerable questions is when you lose that player, so you lose Max King in the opening seconds of the game and it frees Stephen May up to do as he pleases.
Oh, that was stiff, weren't they?
Do as he pleases. And then I think we all, with Christian Petrarca going forward with Fritsch out, we're all going, okay, so let's have a proper look at this. So let's do PFI over Melbourne and Petrarca forward as a starting point.
So
Preliminary final integrity for those who don't play all the time.
So if you can't score, you can't win, right? We all accept that. At some point, you're going to have to start offensively getting going. The D's are brilliant without the footy, and as soon as they get it, they're pedestrian. They're awful. But I do think even when they were very good over the last 24 months, they have never been gifted offensively. Everyone's got that 10-minute window in their mind. I keep coming back to the James Brayshaw bang, bang, bang. You know, everyone sees that and thinks that this free-flowing offensive juggernaut, which they were for 100 minutes. But outside of that, they were a bit clunky. They've always been a little bit clunky. So the team won 13 contests. Sorry. The team were involved in 13 one-on-ones in the forward 50, and Petrarca was winning 7 of them.
Yes.
15 contested possessions inside the forward 50, and he won the bulk of them. He is their answer forward of centre. He is the reason they score. While Fritsch is out, and clearly they've got Oliver out, but they've got replacements in the middle. I think it works. Is it the absolute solution? No, it's not. There needs to be other components as well. But he played almost 70% forward, which is the most he's played as a forward since 2019. So that's a long time. There's a lot of high quality games in the middle. I understand he's a clearance beast and he's a gun midfielder and he's top 3 or 4 for the Brownlow. So he's that calibre of player, but they need him where they need him. So 20 disposals, 9 of them in the forward 50, is of more value to Melbourne right now than 35 as a general midfielder. Just rolling around the ground, getting them, in the midfield and centre back. He's not a great kick inside 50. So do you get absolute bang for your buck with him kicking inside 50? Or do you get greater service with him inside 30 winning the footy? Not as spent as what he has been charging full length of the ground. We tried to show some vision of that, on the weekend. I think that this is the model, that he has to be 70% forward, 30% mid, and you can always throw him in at centre bounces. That's the easiest thing in the game to do. So when Fritsch gets back, I hope they resist the urge to go back to what they've always been in the middle of the ground. It doesn't affect their defence. So they keep their defensive stability and then they get something offensively from this guy being forward. So when Fritsch comes back, you have the pair of them. I think that's enough. And if you can get one of the big blokes to do something, just something, Gerard. I don't know who it is or the mix of how it looks. But if you can just get one of them to just become a 2-goal game player for 4 weeks, it just may be enough. People are jumping off the Melbourne bus everywhere, and I can understand that because the other sides look aesthetically better. But what they do without the footy is going to keep them deep into this season. In my opinion, they're going to be a preliminary final team. So fall in love and out of love with them at your own pleasure, but they'll be there. They're too good not to be there.
So in PFI, will Petrarca be on preliminary final night, in your mind, what's Petrarca's split mid-forward?
If they're winning preliminary final night, 70-30.
Yep.
If they're losing, he's 100% mid.
Yep. All right, bit of PFI with a specific edge. And then the open question. So St Kilda, King and Membry were their two big forwards coming into the season. They've played 10 of 34 games and none together. Not a single game have they played together. And they're still sitting sixth.
Yeah.
Like you talk about a lot with a little. And Ross has done a lot with a little at St Kilda, but is this the killer blow late in the season?
Yeah, it probably is. But that's part of the journey, isn't it? That's part of finding out what you've got on your list and all those sorts of things. As a year of fact-finding, everyone has said that. And Saints fans are wrapped. They go to the footy. They know they're going to get an absolute contest. They know they're going to get the best from what they've got. And there's some pride in that. And you run good teams to close margins and you beat those you should beat, playing a way that you know going there. This is how we're going to play. And this is the problems that it poses and this is the opportunities that it presents. So I think Saints fans, in the main, are pretty happy. They got a kid that's a 1 in 2 chance of winning the Rising Star this year.
Yep.
So all those problems you talked about, no forwards, they got a guy in the Rising Star fight, Mitch Owens, who should have had 4 goals next to his name on the weekend. He kicked 2. He had one that defied physics that bounced back on the goal line. That was just the ultimate. It was going through all the way, and how it bounced back, I don't know. And then some peanut gave away a free kick when he was taking a mark at the top of the goal square to bring him right back into the game. So he's doing some amazing things. It's him or Ashcroft, and I'm being talked around here. I like Ashcroft's year. I like his numbers. But then I see Owens, and I think he's doing it in a team that doesn't have any support forward of centre. He's a one-man war down there. He hasn't had the luxury of what Brisbane have had, with class everywhere. So when Ashcroft drives the ball forward, there's a fair chance that Brisbane are going to score, whereas Mitch Owens has to do it all himself.
Yep.
So what are they going to become? Who knows? But it's really good to see this young bloke doing what he did, and I'm a fan of what St Kilda have built in terms of the culture and the standards. It's happened quickly.
It is an interesting that Rising Star discussion right at the end. It is so interesting because Ashcroft has held his place in the midfield of a top 3 team all year and enhanced a top 3 midfield, which is a pretty rare quality. And then Owens is fighting the fight and has done in an exceptional way single-handedly for a lot of the year with what we documented there.
So what do you like? What do you value? What do you value in footy? So if it's winning contest, Owens has got him by panels, by miles, because he's winning contest, forward of centre, the hardest thing to do, win ball inside 50. He's doing all of that. Winning contest at a clearance, 4v4, probably a little bit easier. And then getting inflated numbers in terms of scoring vols because Brisbane are at a different stage of their premiership challenge than what St Kilda are, and he's in a machine that just continues to score. So his numbers will look greater, but what has more impact on games and what's going to have more impact in 3 years? Is the award a projection forward?
It shouldn't
or is
be,
it just
should it?
this year?
It shouldn't be a projection.
I always think there's a
forward.
little bit of a projection forward in the back of their minds. But if you're just judging this year, it'll be fascinating to see how it falls. But I do think it's a race in 2.
Yeah. And they've had 2 ripper seasons. We're aligned here. There's no real fun in alignment. We're 1 Collingwood, 2 Port Adelaide, 3 Brisbane, 4 Melbourne. I reckon it's just self-evident for the time being. So I thought today, on the back of Brisbane's 81-point victories 2 weeks running at the Gabba, and on the back of Port Adelaide's 3rd term at Adelaide Oval, so instead of just the team, it's the team and the venue. So the Lions at the Gabba are 8 from 8 with an average winning margin of 44 points. They kick 16 goals a week. They've beaten Melbourne and Collingwood there. They've got 3 left at the Gabba. Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval are 8 wins and a loss, and the loss is a showdown, which is an asterisk. So against visiting teams, they're 8-0. They've beaten Brisbane, Melbourne and Geelong there. Their average winning margin is 13 points. They kick 15 goals a game there, and they've got 4 to come. Collingwood are 8-1 at the MCG. Melbourne are 7-1 at the MCG. Collingwood's loss was to Melbourne. Melbourne's loss was to Fremantle. They've both got 5 left at the MCG in their last 7. Then you've got Geelong at Geelong are 4 wins and a loss. Bulldogs at Marvel are 5 wins, 4 losses. Essendon at Marvel are 4 from 4. So they're unbeaten at Marvel, and they've got 4 in a row there from round 19 to round 22.
Oof.
And Adelaide are 7 from 9 with 4 to come. 1's a showdown. So seedings, a little bit of it swings on, do you have a profound advantage on that ground? So Melbourne at the MCG, Collingwood at the MCG, sort of a bit in the eye of the beholder as to whether it's a profound advantage. It feels like the Lions at the Gabba have, that's profound, was sort of how I approached it. So team and venue in the seedings, 4 up.
4 up.
4 up. No, actually, it probably makes sense to go 1 down in this instance.
Go 1 down.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to put Collingwood there at 1.
At the MCG.
At the MCG. Because there's a few reasons. They'll have 90,000 supporting them.
Yeah, I like that.
And that has a massive impact.
It has infected the environment
It
at
changes
games.
everything. And when they gather that momentum and come a charging, it's on. And the players are fueled by it. There's no bigger roar. When they got rolling against Adelaide, there was no way Adelaide were getting them. No way. And you feel it. You can feel it. It's awesome, Gerard. So they've won 8 of 9 there. So I always come back to the final. So against the best teams with the most at stake, they got beat by Geelong by 6 points last year. But that was, again, another withering finish. So for me, it's Collingwood.
I love that. No, I've gone the Lions at the Gabba as 1. I think that's the biggest advantage that a team has at their venue at the moment.
Didn't factor crowd noise in, did you?
No, I didn't go with crowd noise.
In COVID, I'm with you, Gerard.
8 from 8 and big scores. They're kicking big scores. And they've handled Melbourne and Collingwood easily at the Gabba. I don't think they're doing that elsewhere.
For a lot of the same reasons at 2, I've gone Port Adelaide. And really, they've had a couple of tough losses in prelims in 20 and 21. But same sort of thing. When they get rolling, everything lifts. And it's just ridiculous. The pre-game has a buzz to it. I feel like they're a more rounded team this year than what they've been the last couple. It sort of surprised us a couple of years ago, and then now they're living being a good team for the season, and there's some maturity in that. So I think they'll handle the big finals at home a lot better than they previously have, and that's why I've got them at 2.
I've got Collingwood at the MCG at 2, and I've got Port Adelaide at Adelaide Oval at 3. And a little bit of a factor in that is they're so good at Marvel. It's sort of that they are that team in multiple places, which was one of the differentiators I used. They don't have any trouble taking their best on the road.
Don't have any trouble.
Port, when they come to Marvel, they've got the best streak in the comp.
Will there be finals at Marvel?
No. But just for where we are now.
Sorry, G, I've strayed.
And that leaves both of us with Melbourne at the MCG at 4.
Yeah, well...
Which is the same reflection of where they are in our normal
I had
seating.
Melbourne at the MCG at 3 and Brisbane at 4.
Oh, you had Brisbane at 4?
Yeah.
Really? Brisbane at the Gabba at 4?
Is that an error?
No. There are no errors in the seedings.
I feel like
You
I
can
made
do
an error
whatever
there.
you like.
Really
with the
happy with my 1 and
seedings.
2. Did I mention that?